growing up in the church hear this too about like people who left, that they just left to sin.
Right.
For me, I left, I lost my faith because I was trying to prove, I thought the church was so true, it would be easy to prove empirically.
Right.
And then I went and sought that empirical evidence, and it all fell apart. So for you, what was it for you that was the honest reason you lost your faith? And if you have a specific thing, that the specific straw that broke the camel's back, what was that thing?
Yeah, so I would say that there's value in trying to validate when people lob accusations that way, right? So I try and embrace it and say that me not wanting to go to church played a massive role in me stopping attending church and losing my faith, right? And validating that tired adage or analogy of like, faith is like a little seed and you have to plant it and grow it, and if you stop feeding it, then it's going to die. And validating that and saying, yeah, I honestly was not feeding my faith. I was not feeding my testimony, and I did allow it to die. And saying, you know, that's a valuable analogy too, but it's also a matter of extending that and saying, it wasn't because I wanted to do those things that I left. Doing those things are just manifestations of me being a happier person. Now, you know, a person who makes those accusations thinks that a person going out on a Friday night and drinking with friends is the worst thing they could ever do, or they're smoking a cigarette. There must be miserable, hateful, evil people led by the adversary. Yeah. So if you can understand where they're coming from, and that they're, you know, largely operating from a mode of trying to preserve your eternity. They're truly doing it from a place of love. They are trying to look out for your eternal salvation. And it comes off as arrogant because it is, by design, very arrogant.
Right.
It is, I have the truth and I know what's best for you. Yeah. Therefore, I'm going to tell you what's best for you. Yeah. So trying to validate where they're coming from and understand where they're coming from, and also saying that I do those things because I want to do them, because I take value in those interactions that I share with people. Right. And I am able to do those things because I don't see the sin in those things. This doesn't have to be an argument. This is a great place to spawn a conversation. And saying that I am free to think whatever I think, or whatever I would like to think about those situations, and evaluate the merits of those situations based on what happens, instead of saying that nothing good happens after 10 o'clock and, you know, a person going out to party with friends is the worst thing that they could do. Instead of just making those broad assertions, why don't we say, so what happened at that party last night? Did you have fun? Who did you meet? What kind of conversations did you have? Did you learn something new in talking to somebody you've never met before for, 45 minutes next to a blaring speaker that's playing cool music? Did you have fun? Did you enjoy yourself? Did something happen that you regret? Is there something that you need to talk about? Is there something that happened to you that you were not in control of that we need to discuss? Is there something that I can help you work through, right? We need to evaluate these situations individually, instead of just casting a broad umbrella over these and saying that they are all bad. Right. And I'm only able to evaluate the merits of each one of those interactions individually because I have had that mechanism removed where I have been trained to treat every one of those situations as bad. Right. Right. And that's, I mean, even I've even said to people, like, you actually should take a break from going to church for a few months. Like, yeah, absolutely. You don't understand that it's going to be there when you come back. Yeah. And if
it's true, it'll be true in 3 months, as it is now. Or if it's not true, you might actually have a chance at seeing that. That was one of the things taught too. Like, don't be inactive. There's no, privately believing at home's not enough. And a lot of that is, if you have doubts, they want their first shot at making you not fixing the doubts, not giving you the information, making you feel terrible for having the doubts in the first place. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is that's not an honest place to approach a conversation from.
Right. So was there a single thing you learned that you think was like the moment the camel's back broke?
Yeah. So my coming to skepticism moment, as I began studying Mormon history, I was listening to a lot of different podcasts. atheism included. I was also I was watching a lot of documentaries, and this was at a time when I was, when I first moved to Colorado. So I would come home, I would get off work, and the way that a lot of people, when they get off work, they sit down and have a couple of beers and with dinner and whatever. I would sit down and have a joint and watch documentaries, right?
Nice.
And that's how I began really expanding my brain and coming to fall in love with information.
Sure.
So one of these nights, and you know how sometimes on cannabis your brain can connect dots that do not belong connected.
Yeah.
I was actually watching Zeitgeist. So Zeitgeist was my skepticism coming to light moment. And I was watching, as because Zeitgeist, it's broken into like 3 parts or whatever. One is like the 9/11 truther part of it. Another part is like the religious part of it. And I was watching the religious part, and I think it was talking about Planet X, or Nibiru and the Anunnaki and all of these really fringe conspiracy theories and everything. And I started thinking about Joseph Smith, and I started thinking about Jesus and Muhammad, and I like had all of these dots floating around in my mind. And for a brief second, my brain connected all of them. And I was like, maybe they're all right. Maybe all the religions are true. And then in a dramatic turn of like 10 seconds of having all of these dots connected, I said, that's bullshit. Because, hang on, there's no way they can be all true.
Right.
But they can all be bullshit.
Yeah.
And that was like my great time when I first said that, well, atheism makes sense. I guess, I mean, atheism is the only one of these that makes sense. Withholding belief in any of these gods and any of these conspiracy theories and all of these fringe theories, withholding judgment of them and not believing in them is the most calculated and intellectually honest place to come to these with.
Right.
I'm an atheist. Like that was my great moment.
Mine didn't jump to atheism, but my I'm done with Mormonism moment, which in a lot of ways is the coming to atheism, because it wasn't like I'm done with Mormonism, but now I believe in all these other things. But it was so similar because it was like I remember I was actually sitting in my parents' house and I was just thinking things through. There was all these things I had learned that were contradicting, and I was doing all of the apologetics. And then for the first time I went, okay, stop for a second and just entertain the idea that none of it's true, and now re-examine all of those things that I'm trying to, and it just fell into place. And so it was it was a short minute or two of re-observing all of these things that were just on my mind right then, over the lens of, instead of I need to do all this apologetics, it's just not all true. And it's almost like an Occam's razor thing. Like it's, the much simpler solution is this is all bullshit.
Totally.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it fits.
I'll actually use an analogy that I commonly use for the difference between popular Mormon history and Mormon history. And that's, when I first started studying Mormon history, I felt like I walked in the room and turned a light on. Yeah. Whereas before I was trying to look in this dark room and illuminate things with a laser pointer, and it wasn't very effective. But now, I flipped on the light and I started pointing out everything that I was seeing. And that was the popular Mormon history. The same thing kind of happens when you come to skepticism. And like all of the religions are bullshit. Like, Muhammad went to heaven on a flying horse. That's bullshit. Yeah. Right. But now as I've begun, as I've plugged into the community more, as I've gone to conferences and, atheism, skepticism conferences, I'm going to be at QED here in a couple of weeks, as well as Mormon history conferences. That's rooting around in the filing cabinets of this room. Yeah. That's digging under the rug. That's looking in all of the nooks and crannies and not just pointing out what you see, but investigating and trying to, come to an understanding of everything that's in the room.
I just like the idea of because this was totally me back then, like the Muhammad went to heaven on a winged horse. That's so silly. I'm not an idiot. I just believe Joseph Smith hung out in an attic with a Native American Jew who is dead, by the way.
Perspective, people. Perspective.
Yeah, brilliant. A dead ancient Native American Jew, for the record. Yeah,
it was very, very white.
Yeah,
very white.
A super white. You're right. A super white. It's just the more naked. You put it out. Was he naked? I don't remember the naked part.
I mean, it says that his robe was open to reveal his bosom or something. I mean, I'm mincing words a little bit, but yeah.
That's got to give you
naked.
That's got to give you issues.
Super white.
Super white. So not well endowed. Okay, so
covered the room in his whiteness.
That's really white.